It's another energy story. I missed these. I missed these stories.
Top rice.
How you guys doing?
Top rice.
My name is Hero. This is
No
Coding
meats.
with Strangers,
Top rice.
and I
There's no meat.
can't believe we're like 3 or 4 episodes or videos based on this, where we haven't figured out how we're going to power AI, but everyone's convinced that AI is the future, and it's the equivalent of, planning a vacation and your bank account is in the red. We've all been there. And make sure you thank that person who was on the trip with you that you confided in and told them you broke, and they said, no, still come. I got you. Send them a text in the morning. Send them a text right now. Thank them. Like, share, and subscribe. Don't let a black man fail this year. We only got a few days left. But it's fascinating to me that these multi-billion-dollar companies that we have trusted and believed, because a lot of them have their pledges to be zero-sum game or net zero when it comes to emissions by certain deadlines, I think 2035. And it's hard to believe that they're going to be able to hit these goals if there's so much investment in still even perfecting the tool to make it do things right. And everyone's talking about, Sora this and OpenAI that. Sora's trash. It's not fooling anybody who has common sense. And it's not fooling, and the version of it isn't even as leaps and bounds better than what it was 4 to 5 years ago. Not impressed. But the fact that they are now bringing up that they need to spend money on creating AI implies that one of two things is happening. One, it's not sustainable. One, it's not sustainable and they need a way of doing this. And then two, if they do seem to find value in it, it's only going to be profitable if they can do it cheaply. And if you have renewable energy, as in something you don't have to pay back, something that's reusable, you stand to make a better profit. So I don't want to, by any stretch of imagination, to think that these companies are doing this because the planet, the emissions, our Mother Nature. No, they will fuck Mother Nature, no lube required, if it was profitable. But it just so happens renewable energy and maybe some nuclear, because that's what Microsoft is thinking, might be the answer here. So we're going to find out what Google plans to do. And I've used Google Gemini. It's not that good. There's certain people that don't need to be in the AI race, and I think Google's one of them. Stick to what you know. Quality search results.
Hey bro, I think I'm gonna head on in for the night. I'm kinda tired.
No problem. Get some rest.
Hey, didn't you work today?
12-hour shift.
And you went to the gym?
PR to 700 deadlift.
And you still got energy to do all this work? Where does the energy come from, bro?
I'm at my best when I have my Zest, baby.
Zest?
The Zest Super Berry Samba Green Tea comes packed with 135 milligrams of caffeine and L-theanine. That's how I stay focused for longer and stronger throughout the day with no crash. It's way better than coffee or any of those sugar-filled energy drinks out there. No GMO, gluten-free, and it won't stain your teeth.
Oh yeah, that sounds real good. Is this one, right?
Yes, sir, that's the one. But my brother in Zest, I'm gonna need you to get your own Super Berry Samba Green Tea.
Selfish.
You mad, bro? Don't worry, I got you. Use my promotional code down below to get 20% off selected items and the subscriptions. That's Coding with Strangers, all one word. Put that in the checkout box and you'll be good to go. Thank you so much to Zest for the sponsorship. Quality search results. Gemini isn't it. But, don't cancel me. Don't cancel me. I know you guys are owners of YouTube or some shit like that, but just keeping it real. Google kicks off 20 billion renewable energy building spree to power AI. Nuclear power may have received the lion's share of attention from energy-hungry tech companies over the past few months, with Google's among the team But it appears that those new reactors won't be enough to their AI ambition. Can you imagine? Can you imagine saying that the nuclear reactors aren't enough? They were thinking about starting up 3 Mile Island, an abandoned, failed nuclear power plant. They were like, no, we're going to start it back up. Let's give it a second chance. It didn't work the first time. Let's give it a second chance. But it's not enough. Google is now working with a partner to build gigawatts of renewable power, battery storage, and grid upgrades to power the data centers. You know, the upgrades and the power settings that we could have used for anything else, just human life in general. They said that people would stand to save 52% on their electric and gas bill if we upgraded our infrastructure. And people are like, how is that possible? I was like, have you ever driven a car from like 20 years ago, 100 miles? And they're like, yeah. You notice how much you have to stop and refill? How you don't have to do that with modern cars because they're more efficient? They're like, yeah. There you go, dumbass. That's why we want to do it. Google announces Tuesday signed a deal with renewable developers, Intersect Power, and an investment fund, TPG Rise Climate, to spin up enough carbon-free power to drive several gigawatt-scale data centers. Altogether, the investment in renewable power will run about $20 billion, and Intersect is already financing the first project, the company told TechCrunch. One thing that I'm very interested to see here, are they really doing something to do it, or are they buying like tokens for other people to do it? I'm very curious to know, because this is one thing that a lot of companies said, oh, we're going to be carbon emission by a certain point because we have these carbon tokens, and it's just basically them paying a tax to be able to pollute. But it looks like they've integrated it into a reliable company. We'll see how much more we can learn from it. The deal also includes $800 million in equity investment in Intersect Power with TPG, the leading round, and CAI, Google, and Greenbelt Capital Partners participating. As tech companies like Google rush to bolster the AI capabilities they have embarked in building spree so fast that experts expect the new AI data centers might be underpowered by 2027. And this is another thing that's kind of terrifying. We're moving so fast, we can't make laws for this thing. We can't appropriately adjust for infrastructure. We can't scale it on demand. This isn't a very good showing of good capital investment. But I mean, you have to start somewhere, right? You don't know what you got till it's gone. That has forced tech companies to invest in new sources of energy. For the new project of hypothetical 1 gigawatt scale data centers would be matched with an equivalent amount of each of wind and solar and battery storage, which would have enough capacity to last 2 to 4 hours. Bloomberg reported. This is also another thing. If a nuclear power plant doesn't have enough energy to do this, and I know the answer to this, and I'll explain the answer to this. The reason why the nuclear power plant doesn't have enough energy is because the infrastructure and the grid isn't optimized enough to carry the full potential of the power. You know, there can't be a full 100% transfer of anything. So if we're making an assumption, maybe the transfer power capability is probably 20% now. If you could crank that up to 60%, and I'm being totally facetious with these numbers, that's a mighty big bump up. And if you did the same thing with the infrastructure with wind, solar, and a bunch of other renewables, this might also be able to kick up if you improve the infrastructure. Why do I say this? Because we know in Texas they have wind farms and solar plants, but they only make up about 15% of the total grid and only make up like 8% of usage, and it's because of the infrastructure. So proper infrastructure maximizes these perceivably small investments in development and further drives them forward. You got to optimize the tools you're using. Both data centers and renewable power parks would be connected to the same point on the grid. Google said will foot the bill for all required upgrades. Good on them, because Microsoft asked the city that the power plant was in to give them $3.1 million. The hope is that the arrangement would help the data centers and renewable power parks get connected quickly. There is 11,860 active requests in the U.S. from power producers wanting to connect with the grid, according to the interconnectivity FYI. A total 2.005 terawatts of capacity are awaiting, nearly double the currently installed and connected. The majority of those are for solar and battery projects. So there's interest, there's investment, there's money, there's people, there's smart people at this. Like, they have an opportunity to do something huge here. Operational by 2026 and fully completed by 2027, which is when they think it'll be obsolete, highlighting the speed of which the renewable power can be deployed. This should put pressure on nuclear power plants to start up and developers, all of which have longer times. The quickest nuclear power plant, Microsoft restarting refactory at 3 Mile Island, we talked about this earlier, is scheduled to come online in 2028. Google deal with small modular reactor startup, Curios, has a 2030 deadline for the first several power plants, while Amazon contracts with SMR startup X Energy. So, real quick, this isn't stock advice, but if you go find all these companies, I guarantee you'll get some positive investments, because deadlines have already been set. And I highly doubt, as far as energy is concerned, it's not as pretty as a Tesla or other stocks. But if you wanted, I definitely will be writing this down. But that's the story, right? So what's the takeaway from this? We see Google and a bunch of other companies trying to mitigate the foreseeable future of disasters, which is us not having enough power to fund, supply, and take AI to the next level. And one of the more diabolical things that people don't mention when they're talking about AI is, if they don't have enough power on the grid, where would they take it from? What would stop Google from, forcing them to take rolling blackouts to a national scale? Something you see in California when the heat wave is hitting at its highest, you'll see rolling blackouts. What's to stop Google from saying at peak hours, we're going to hit rolling blackouts to make sure we have enough power to fund our data centers that make us billions? Also, do we want corporations in charge of federal or state regulated processes? Is it okay for a company that is vulnerable? Anything is vulnerable, but is it okay to have more than one hand in the cookie jar for this? There's so many complications that come with it, and you have to remember, they're willing to go the nuclear route, and that's literally a catch-all phrase of, we're going nuclear, as a warning, as this is the last stage. This is the last thing we could do before shit gets real. And they're willingly saying, no, let's just start nuclear power plants all around the world. Pay attention to what these things are doing and how these things are being built. If you live in the area, make sure you're paying attention to your voting in your area, because we don't know what the consequences are of these things being started. We know 3 Mile Island had a be decommissioned because it had a factory meltdown. And thank God it wasn't as catastrophic as like Chernobyl or something like that. But knowing that we have multiple power plants all around the country being funded by corporations, and not being funded for the sake of, just guaranteeing that people don't have to pay exorbitant electric bills during the winter, is truly the antithesis of, like, we're in the end games and we're all fucked. But that's just my opinion. Hey, let me hold $5 because clearly